Up to this point, Oil Barrage has mainly been used as a single target ability, and rightfully so. It is one of the best single target abilities in the game. Turns out though that it's actually one of the best AoE clear skills as well. And you can achieve both with no passive tree, gear, or gem swap. Welcome to my Oil Barrage Amazon build guide. Oil Barrage has quite a few components to it. At its base, it's a projectile attack that turns into an AoE when hitting an enemy, when hitting a wall, or where the projectile lands at the end of its travel. You can consume power charges to instead channel Oil Barrage, consuming a power charge every 2 seconds to continue channeling. We'll only be using Oil Barrage with power charges. The projectiles are fired in sequence, and multiple projectiles can hit the same target, allowing us to shotgun enemies. Baseline, it fires 3 projectiles. When it's empowered, Oil Barrage converts 40% of physical damage to lightning, and the ability applies exposure to enemies. So how are we going to ramp Oil Barrage? Aside from just getting pure damage, the 2 main ways to do that are going to be consistent power charge generation, because again, we do not want to use Oil Barrage without power charges, and then increasing our projectile count. Let's talk about projectiles first. So we have Salvo linked to Oil Barrage. With Salvo, supported skills accumulate seals over time and consume them when used. You can have a maximum of 3 seals, and you gain a seal every 2 seconds. For each seal consumed, you fire 2 additional projectiles. So again, Oil Barrage has 3 projectiles baseline, so we can fire up to 9 projectiles with Salvo. Sometimes you're just going to have 1 seal from Salvo, so you're just firing 2 additional projectiles. For the majority of scenarios, that's totally fine. Don't worry about always getting to 3 maximum seals. Now, the interesting thing with Salvo and Oil Barrage is that Oil Barrage will snapshot this. So if you start to channel Oil Barrage with 3 seals, so you're firing 6 additional projectiles with Salvo, it will continue to fire the 6 additional projectiles for the entirety of that particular Oil Barrage channel. Salvo has the downside of firing projectiles in random directions. We negate this downside by running Nova Projectiles 1. This makes supported skills fire projectiles in a circle. This is also what allows us to get really insane AoE map clear. We'll be linking Oil Barrage with the Fork support. Projectiles from supported skills Fork. And Fork reads, projectiles that fork split into 2 the first time they hit an enemy and do not pierce it. With some passives on the passive tree, this is actually going to split into 3 projectiles. I think you can kind of start to see where this is going. We've got potentially 9 projectiles that we fire with Oil Barrage. Each one of those have the potential to fork into 3 more projectiles. It starts to get pretty insane. And then finally we have Ricochet 2. Projectiles from supported skills have a 50% chance to chain an additional time from terrain. Then we can also get another 20% of this stat on the passive tree. This is the one projectile support that I'm okay with dropping. You don't have to run this. It is very good for mapping, and currently I am running it. Now obviously it's not going to be great in every scenario. You're going to have some boss fights where there's no terrain to ricochet off of. So you're going to want to swap it out in that scenario. When we go over the gems, we'll talk about potential options to swap ricochet out for. Next up, we're going to discuss power charges and movement, because they actually go hand in hand in this build. Our weapon swap is going to be into spears. This is so we can run Whirling Slash. Now, Whirling Slash is one ability in the game that actually moves your character forward when you use it. So by stacking a ton of attack speed and skill speed, you can turn Whirling Slash into a movement ability. We get the ability Spear Stab as our default attack from running a spear. We're going to link Culmination 2 to Spear Stab. This reads supported skills gain combo when you successfully strike enemies with other melee attacks. So as we are fluidly moving through a map with Whirling Slash, it will generate combo points for Spear Stab. Now keep in mind that combo is expended when you use the ability. So we generate the combo points with Whirling Slash, we then Spear Stab to expend the combo. And when we expend that combo, we're going to generate power charges with Eyelith's Chimes. Now this is a lineage support gem, so you can't run this until level 65. Just keep that in mind if this is something you're trying to run prior to 65, you have to figure out a different way to generate power charges. But again, generating these power charges is pretty fluid. You're just moving through the map with Whirling Slash, quickly hit Spear Stab, and again, with that weapon set, we are stacking attack speed and skill speed. So that Spear Stab is extremely fast. You get your power charges, and then you can go ahead and use your Oil Barrage. One last thing to keep in mind with this is that when you weapon swap to your Talisman, you will lose all accumulated combo. So you need to Whirling Slash, then Spear Stab to get your power charges, then Oil Barrage. The one nice thing about Oil Barrage, though, is it's not extremely power charge hungry. A lot of times you're able to use Oil Barrage 2 to 3 times before you need to worry about generating power charges again while mapping. Now, obviously, there are other ways to get power charges, and some ways to automate getting power charges, like Vol's Protector chest piece, for instance. But I didn't want to run it because you sacrifice a very defensive chest piece, and I just didn't want to do that in this build. Next up, let's talk about defenses. Amazon has one of the tankiest setups in the entire game with the Stalking Panther Ascendancy node through Energy Shield, Evasion, and Deflection. So currently we have over 1,700 life, 4,400 Energy Shield. Our Evasion rating is at 26k, or a 72% chance to evade. This goes up a little bit with different things that are happening, like moving and things like that. Then we have a 66% chance to deflect. And then when we do deflect, we prevent 43% of that damage. Let's talk more about the Stalking Panther Ascendancy node. So that reads evasion rating from equipped helmet, gloves, and boots is doubled. And then evasion rating from equipped body armor is halved. So this allows us to basically just get all of our evasion rating from our helmet, gloves, and boots. And then we can run a pure Energy Shield body armor. And there's actually a lot of different stats in the game that increase how much Energy Shield you get from your body armor. So we're going to stack those as well. So here's a quick example of my helmet, gloves, and boots. See, we're getting a ton of evasion rating. I am actually running hybrid boots at the moment, so they have some Energy Shield there as well. But those could easily be just pure evasion boots. And then an example of my body armor. As you can see, high Energy Shield is what we're looking for here. We've got Chaos Res, and we actually have some damages taken from mana before life. This is really nice to have a little bit of this stat. If enemies do get through your Energy Shield, you have even more of a buffer of life there. We're also getting 3 sources of the stat increased Energy Shield from equipped body armor. So from Heart of the Well, then from a Desecrated mod on the Amulet, and then also from our Anoint on the Amulet as well. And then finally we have Ghost Dance. This is a very powerful recovery mechanic. So you periodically gain Ghost Shrouds, and then when you're hit, while you have a Ghost Shroud, you'll consume it to recover Energy Shield equal to 5% of your evasion. Next up, let's talk about the rest of the skills and support gems. So for Oil Barrage, we've talked about most of this, but we have Nova Projectiles 1, Salvo, Fork, and Ricochet 2. And again, you can replace Ricochet 2 if you don't feel like it's going to be beneficial in certain scenarios. Then for the last support gem, you have a few options. So you've got either Rage Forged 1 or 2 is fine. 2 is just going to give you a chance to not spend Rage. The main reason to run this is because we're running Rage 3 on Whirling Slash. So when you're not at full max Rage, you get increased attack speed on your Whirling Slash to then move faster. The typical gameplay loop is Whirling Slash through enemies, get your power charges, then you Oil Barrage. Then you're not at max Rage, to then start moving to get more attack speed from Rage 3. So you can do that if you want to. It's not bad for mapping. It does increase your movement speed. You can also run Burgeon 2. Supported skills deal 20% more damage per second spent channeling, up to 40%. And then if you have the money for it, you can run Garukin's Resolve. It's incredible in the build. I just started running it recently, but it is absolutely not mandatory. You can run all content in the game without spending the Divines on this. Then for the rest, we've got Spear Stab. So again, running Eyeless Chimes and Culmination on there. We also have Rapid Attacks 3 for more attack speed, Ancestral Call just to make sure that we hit enemies, and then Charged Perfusion to potentially get additional charges from this. Rend we're going to get for free because we're Wyvern on our Talisman, so it's our basic attack. So the nice thing about Rend is when you consume a power charge with Rend, you'll get a buff that gives you extra lightning damage for all of your attacks. And we're also going to attempt to freeze with Rend. So we're going to run Embitter so that any extra damage that Rend gets is going to be turned into cold damage. along with Freeze, Elemental Armament 2, and Close Combat. Then we're also going to run Bater's Vengeance, so that if we do freeze with Rend, we're going to gain damage as cold damage per rage. We're running Wind Dancer to gain more evasion rating. We just have Rage 2 on there. This is technically a melee ability, so it will grant Rage. You can also add other things to this. Some people add Stun, Pin, things like that. Running Pounce. This is another movement ability. You can pretty much use this on cooldown as long as you're moving through the map. It also allows you to kind of traverse areas that you typically wouldn't be able to with Whirling Slash. That's the one annoying thing about Whirling Slash and abilities like it. You can get caught on things. Pounce helps out with that. So Pounce baseline puts a mark on enemies that when consumed will generate wolves for you, wolf minions. And then enemies take increased damage based on how many of the target's enemies are near to it. Then you can also socket in other mark skills that will activate instead of Predator's Mark. So for mapping, we're running Sniper's Mark. The next critical hit against marked enemies have 86% increased critical damage bonus. But the main reason we're running this for mapping is because when you consume this mark, you gain a Frenzy Charge. And we're running Charged Perfusion, which we'll get to here in just a minute, but this is our main way of generating Frenzy Charges in the build. So they're also running Cooldown Recovery. Pounce is a cooldown ability. Rapid Attacks 3, we're not worried about dealing damage with this, we just want it to attack quickly. Blazing Critical, so if we crit an enemy, we're going to deal increased fire damage for 5 seconds. And then Brutus Brain is going to make it so that our wolves from this ability, from the Predator's Mark, cannot die. So a couple things about this. So again, I run Sniper's Mark while mapping. Against bosses, you can take this out and just use the Predator's Mark. The one cool thing, though, is that you can build up your wolves to the maximum of 7 that I currently have, and then have Brutus Brain in there, and still put Sniper's Mark in and retain your wolves. So you're not going to be getting damage from the wolves, really, but what it does is it gives you a little bit more of a defensive layer. They can body block things, they can absorb projectiles, things like that. So you can have the wolves and whatever other mark you want to socket into Pounce. Currently running Mana Remnants. So when you pick these remnants up, they're going to give you mana, and it can actually overflow your mana pool as well. And the main reason I'm running this currently is just because of that stat that we have on the tree and on our body armor that damage is taken from mana before life. So if we do get in a situation where we take a bunch of damage to our mana, we can get it back quickly. This is absolutely not necessary. I just didn't really have much else to put in the build that I needed at the moment, but I do like to have this. It also, if you were ever going to have any kind of mana issues with the build whatsoever, this takes care of it. And we also have Catal's Rejuvenation socketed into that. This is actually going to give us cooldown recovery when we pick up the remnants. We're not doing a ton with cooldown in this build, but it does get Pounce off of cooldown quicker. Then again, we have Whirling Slash, and really, typically what you're doing with Whirling Slash is just trying to get as much attack speed as you can. Rapid Attacks 3, Rage 3, Heightened Accuracy. Because of Falcon Dive on the passive tree, this is actually going to give us more attack speed. Rigwald's Ferocity. So if this ability is in weapon set 1, we get 30% increased attack speed. So keep that in mind. Your weapon set 1 is going to be Spears. Your weapon set 2 is going to be your Talisman. And we're also running Knockback. So when we're kind of moving through enemies, we don't get body blocked by them as much. We move them out of the way. So Charge Regulation. We're going to gain buffs if we have charges. So we get more critical hit chance while we have a power charge, more defenses while we have an endurance charge, and increased skill speed while we have a frenzy charge. So we've already talked about how we're getting power charges. And again, from Pounce and Sniper's Mark, we're going to get our frenzy charges. And then we're also going to get endurance charges by breaking armor with Herald of Thunder. I'm currently running Ferocious Roar. The main use case for this, for me, is typically like at the beginning of a boss fight. I'll go ahead and hit this before the boss like really spawns in, before they're attackable. And we're also running it with Echoing Cry, so this echoes a couple times. So you can kind of preemptively hit it, and the boss spawns in, you hit him a couple times with this, pop your rage basically up to full real quick. And that's the main reason I'm running it. This could be something else, absolutely. If there's some other ability you want to run in the build, you can drop Ferocious Roar. This isn't needed at all. We also have Raging Cry and Magnified Area on there. So Herald of Thunder. When you kill shocked enemies with a non-herald attack hit, it'll cause subsequent attack hits to release lightning bolts which deal attack damage to all surrounding enemies. And again, the main reason for Herald of Thunder here isn't really for clear, it's for breaking armor while mapping, so we get endurance charges so that we increase our defenses. So we've got Armor Break 3, Baruch's Smelting, Longshot 2, Elemental Armament 2, and Armor Explosion. Now, just like the other builds that you're seeing that are running Herald of Ice, to kind of get the Armor Explosion chaining going on, we're doing a similar thing here with Herald of Thunder, because Herald of Thunder typically only does lightning damage. 100% of bulk physical damage converted to lightning damage. But if you run gain damage as extra physical damage on your talisman, it is able to do physical damage to then break armor. And then finally, like we talked about, we're running Ghost Dance with compressed duration. Basically, this means that we're just able to get the Ghost Shrouds quicker. Next up, let's take a look at the gear. Now, here's a couple stills of all of my gear. So if you don't want to hear me yap about specifics on the gear, you can just look at it and try to copy it, or, you know, whatever you want to do with it. But here's a quick still of talisman, gloves, body armor, helmet, shoes, and then the headhunter belt. And then here we have the rings, amulet, and then our weapon swap to spear for Whirling Slash. So for each individual gear piece, so we are running a headhunter. At the time of recording this video, these are extremely cheap. I'm not responsible if these things go back up in price, but the economy has been flooded with headhunters. I believe they're like 4 divine right now for the cheapest one. For boots, again, you can either go hybrid or pure evasion here. You do not need to worry about movement speed. All our movement speed is coming from Whirling Slash. You definitely want to get a gain deflection rating equal to evasion rating roll here if you can. With gloves, you definitely want attack speed, and then again a deflection rating roll, and high evasion rating. For rings, get rarity if you can, but you're going to take care of a lot of your resistances with your rings, so just make sure you take care of that first, and then if you can get rarity and, you know, damage to attacks as well, that's great. We also got a prismatic ring here with some rarity. You do want to get 1 leech physical attack damage as life roll. You can get it on either ring or your gloves. We've already shown the body armor. Main thing here is high energy shield. Same with the helmet. You want high evasion rating. You want a deflection rating roll. And we do have socketed in here Ulamon's Gaze. You gain 1 accuracy rating per 1 item evasion rating on equipped helmet. We're running this because we are Amazon, so we're able to overcap our accuracy to then gain crit chance through the Ascendancy, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, but pretty good. Then for the amulet, I've got resistances. We have that increased energy shield from equipped body armor roll, max energy shield, spirit, and then level to all projectile skills. So these can get a bit expensive to either buy or craft if you're going for projectile skills and a spirit. But again, keep in mind that you could just drop mana remnants completely and then you wouldn't need this spirit. And then for the talisman, got a bunch of physical damage, level to all attack skills. The gain damage is extra physical. Chance to gain onslaught and killing hits with this weapon. That's pretty important. Get you a bunch of attack speed. So you kill a bunch of stuff and then you start whirling slashing again and you get more attack speed for moving quicker. And then increased attack speed as well. I'm not going to go in depth on how to craft these. There are a ton of guides out there on how to craft these talismans. If anybody needs a link to one of those guides, let me know in the comments and I'll link it to you. And then for the weapon swap, we do have that soaring spear, which you just basically with your spear, all you're really looking for is just as much attack speed as you can get. So for the Ascendancy, again, Stalking Panther. We also have Critical Strike. The chance to hit with attacks can exceed 100%, and then you gain additional critical hit chance equal to 25% of excess chance to hit with attacks. So again, we're not really stacking accuracy, but we are trying to get accuracy where we can. We've got Predatory Instinct, reveal weaknesses against rare and unique enemies. They deal 50% more damage against enemies with an open weakness. And then we've got In for the Kill, which will give us 20% movement speed and 40% increased skill speed while an enemy with an open weakness is in your presence. Now just an FYI, Elemental Surge does not work with Oil Barrage. I'm not sure if it's because it's a channeled skill or what the issue is, but yeah, it would be kind of cool, but doesn't work. And then there's always potential to drop In for the Kill and run Mystic Harvest so that all of your damage will contribute to your life leech, not just your physical. Let's quickly talk about the passives. I'm not going to go crazy in depth on this, but just keep in mind that your weapon set 1, you really want to stack attack speed and skill speed. Not to say that it's not needed for weapon set 2, but weapon set 1 is where you really want to just stack it for your movement speed. You don't need much else there. You want to get defenses for both weapon sets, and then your crit chance and crit damage and just generic damage is going to be on your weapon set 2. So we are running Dance with Death. On weapon set 1, you're just going to run a spear, nothing in your offhand, so you get more skill speed here. And then things like stimulants are possible because we are running Lavianga's Spirits. This is always active. So this attack speed during any flask effect will always be active on weapon set 1. So I just want to highlight a few things. So you do want to get one Sapphire that has gain additional stun threshold equal to 12% of maximum energy shield. If you can get it somewhere else, that's fine, but I chose to get it on a rare Sapphire. This is pretty important. The absolute worst thing is getting stunned out of your Oil Barrage. Then, like I mentioned earlier, we are getting additional projectiles when we fork. And we're getting a little bit of that chaining from terrain, just like you get with the Ricochet 2 support gem. So this cluster right here, we're getting a ton of passives, so we're able to run a Time Lost Sapphire, which is giving a ton of critical damage bonus, increasing the effect of a lot of these things. So there's a lot of crit going on here. We're getting crit when we daze enemies, and just baseline crit chance and crit damage. And then we're also getting increased maximum energy shield per small passive allocated within this radius. So moving up this way, we're getting 2 additional maximum power charges. And then also, if we've consumed a power charge recently, we're getting 60% increased critical damage bonus. This cluster is pretty insane. We're getting some additional area of effect here, which is nice. And we're also going to be running a controlled metamorphosis, which is going to allow us to jump to a ton of really nice passives. So we get a couple crit ones that also give attributes. We're able to get 15% increased attack speed while not on low mana, and this also has 8% of damage is taken from mana before life. More area of effect here with Dizzying Sweep. And then also, we're getting increased critical hit chance against blinded enemies. One thing I did forget to mention earlier, Whirling Slash does blind enemies. So you almost get that kind of inherently, especially on single targets. You're going to Whirling Slash onto the enemy and then start Oil Barrage, and they will be blinded. So of course the planner will be linked in the top pinned comment on this video, so you can check all this stuff out for yourself if you want to. I think that'll about wrap it up. This is a very fun build. This is honestly a build that I wouldn't have a problem taking to level 100. It's that enjoyable to play for me. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.